The room smells like old carpet and the lingering sweetness of whatever laundry detergent his roommate uses. I can hear the mechanical whir of the box fan in the corner, working overtime against the thick August heat that clings to everything in this college town. The borrowed mattress sits directly on the floor, no frame, just a thin barrier between us and the hardwood that creaks with every movement. Grant's duffel bag is thrown carelessly in the corner, content spilling out like he lives his whole life that way. Unguarded, effortless. I watch him toss a pillow to the far edge of the mattress, that familiar grin spreading across his face. "Don't worry," he says, flopping down on his side of our makeshift bed. "I never sleep next to you." The words come out light, teasing, the same way he might joke about my terrible taste in movies or the fact that I still use a flip phone. But something in my chest tightens anyway. I force a laugh, shaking my head as I settle onto my side, putting as much distance as the narrow mattress allows between us. It's the kind of banter we've perfected over 2 years of friendship. Safe, familiar, a way to acknowledge the thing we never talk about by pretending it doesn't exist. The overhead light clicks off, and suddenly the room transforms. What felt spacious in a yellow glow now feels impossibly small. The darkness wraps around us, thick and immediate, broken only by thin strips of streetlight filtering through his roommate's blinds. The fan continues its steady rhythm, pushing warm air across our skin, but it does nothing to ease the weight that settles between us. I stare at the ceiling, counting the faint shadows cast by the Venetian blinds, trying to will my body to relax. This isn't the first time we've shared a bed. There have been road trips where we crashed in cheap motels, late nights at parties where we ended up passed out on someone's couch. But somehow this feels different. Maybe it's because we're both sober. Maybe it's because we chose this. Maybe it's because I've been pretending not to notice the way things have been changing between us, and now, in the dark, pretending feels impossible. Grant shifts beside me, and the mattress dips under his weight. I can feel the heat radiating from his body, even though we're not touching. He's always run warm. I remember the first time I noticed it, during our sophomore year when we fell asleep studying for finals in the library. I'd woken up with his jacket draped over my shoulders, smelling like his cologne and something distinctly him. I kept on longer than necessary, telling myself I was just cold. A car passes outside, headlights sweeping briefly across the wall before disappearing again. In that moment of illumination, I catch a glimpse of Grant's profile. His eyes are open, staring at nothing. There's something restless in the set of his shoulders, something that makes my pulse quicken. He turns, and I quickly close my eyes, pretending to be closer to sleep than I am. But I can still feel him looking at me. The silence stretches, filled with the mechanical hum of the fan and the distant sound of late-night traffic. I focus on breathing steadily, on keeping my body still, on maintaining the careful distance we've established. But then the mattress shifts again, and I feel the whisper of movement beside me. His hand finds my side first, just a brush of fingertips against my ribs through my t-shirt. I tell myself it's accidental, that he's simply adjusting in his sleep. But then his palm flattens against me, warm and deliberate, and I know with absolute certainty that Grant is awake. My heart hammers against my ribs as his arm slides around me, pulling me back against the solid warmth of his chest. The movement is confident, decisive, like he's been thinking about it since we turned off the lights. Like he's been thinking about it longer than that. I should say something. I should laugh it off, make a joke about him being a cuddler, give us both an easy way out. But the words stick in my throat, and instead I find myself melting into the embrace, my body fitting against his like we've done this 1,000 times before. His breath is warm against the back of my neck, and I can feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat through his chest. There's something almost desperate in the way he holds me, his arm tightening around my waist like he's afraid I might pull away. But I don't pull away. I can't. This is Grant, who makes everything seem possible just by walking into a room. Grant, who I've been in love with since our first semester, though I've never let myself use those words, not even in the privacy of my own thoughts. The fan continues its endless rotation, pushing the same warm air around the small room. Outside, The city settles into its late-night quiet, punctuated only by the occasional car or distant siren. But inside this borrowed room, on this mattress that barely fits us both, the world has narrowed to the space between our bodies, the careful rhythm of our breathing, the weight of his arm across my waist. I think about the joke he made when we first lay down. "I never sleep next to you." Such an easy thing to say, a throwaway line designed to maintain the careful boundaries of our friendship. But boundaries, I'm learning, are fragile things. And sometimes they're meant to be crossed. His thumb traces a small circle against my ribs, so light I might have imagined it. But I didn't imagine it, and the simple touch sends electricity racing through my veins. I'm hyper-aware of every point where our bodies connect, every shared breath, every small movement that brings us incrementally closer. This is dangerous territory. I know it. I'm certain he knows it too. But neither of us moves away. Neither of us speaks. We exist in this suspended moment, this space between friendship and something else entirely, where the rules we've always followed no longer seem to apply. The darkness makes it easier somehow. In daylight, we're different people. We're careful about how we sit, how we touch, how long our eyes linger on each other. We perform the elaborate dance of plausible deniability, a friendship that stays safely within acceptable boundaries. But darkness has its own rules, its own permissions. In darkness, we can pretend this means nothing while knowing it means everything. Grant's breathing has settled into the deeper rhythm of approaching sleep, but his arm remains locked around me, holding me against him with a possessiveness that makes my chest tight with longing. I close my eyes and try to memorize this moment, the weight of him, the warmth, the impossible tenderness of being held by someone who claims he would never sleep next to me. Tomorrow, we'll wake up and return to the careful choreography of our friendship. We'll make coffee and joke about his snoring, and neither of us will mention the way we fit together in the dark. We'll pretend this was just practical, just two friends making the best of a small space. But tonight, in this room that smells like laundry detergent and summer heat, with a fan pushing warm air across our tangled limbs, I let myself sink into the impossible gift of being wanted by Grant, even if it's only in the dark, even if it's only for tonight, even if we'll both pretend it never happened when the sun comes up. I've never been the type to let myself hope for things I can't have. It's a survival mechanism I developed somewhere around middle school, when wanting too much of anything felt dangerous. I learned to keep my expectations low, my desires carefully managed, my heart protected by layers of humor and strategic silence. It served me well mostly, made disappointment less sharp, made rejection easier to swallow. Grant is my opposite in every way that matters. He moves through the world like someone who's never been told no, never been made to feel small or invisible. When he walks into a room, conversations shift toward him like iron filings drawn to a magnet. He has this way of throwing his head back when he laughs, completely unself-conscious, filling whatever space he occupies with the sheer force of his presence. People orbit around him naturally, and he lets them generous with his attention in the way that only truly confident people can be. We met during orientation week of our freshman year. I was sitting alone in the dining hall, picking at a sandwich and watching other people form the friendships that would define their college experience, when Grant dropped into the chair across from me. He didn't ask permission, didn't introduce himself first. He just started talking, something about the terrible coffee and how his roommate snored like a freight train, and within 5 minutes I was laughing harder than I had in months. That's how it started. That's how it's always been with Grant. He decides he wants you in his orbit, and suddenly you're there, pulled in by some gravitational force you never saw coming. 2.5 years later, we're inseparable in the way that only college friendships can be. Our schedules have somehow synchronized around each other. We eat most of our meals together, study in the same corner of the library, spend Friday nights driving to nowhere in his beat-up Honda with the windows down and music turned up loud enough to drown out thinking. He's become the constant in my carefully structured life, the one variable I didn't plan for but can't imagine living without. Our friends joke that we're married, that we finish each other's sentences and share some kind of telepathic connection. They're not wrong, exactly. There's an ease between us that I've never experienced with anyone else, a comfort that runs so deep it sometimes scares me. We can sit in comfortable silence for hours, or talk until 3 in the morning about everything and nothing. He knows I hate crowds, but love thunderstorms. I know he puts hot sauce on everything and still sleeps with the stuffed elephant his grandmother gave him when he was 7, though he'd die before admitting that to anyone else. But lately, something has been shifting. It started small, so subtle, I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. The way his hand would linger on my shoulder when he leaned over to look at my laptop screen. How he'd unconsciously mirror my posture when we sat together, our bodies turning toward each other like flowers following the sun. The increased frequency of casual touches that felt anything but casual. Last month, at Jake's birthday party, I found Grant watching me from across the crowded living room. When our eyes met, he didn't look away immediately like he usually would. Instead, he held my gaze for a long moment, something unreadable flickering across his face before someone called his name and broke the spell. I spent the rest of the night trying to decode that look, turning it over in my mind like a puzzle I couldn't solve. Then there was the night we fell asleep watching movies on his couch, and I woke up with his arm wrapped around me and his face pressed against my shoulder. We'd fallen asleep together before, but never like that. Never with his fingers tangled in my shirt. Never with him holding me like I was something precious he was afraid to lose. When he woke up, he didn't pull away immediately. For a few seconds, we just lay there, breathing in sync, before he cleared his throat and made some joke about his neck being sore. The moments have been accumulating like evidence of something neither of us is willing to name. Glances that last too long. Touches that seem to burn. Conversations that skate right up to the edge of dangerous territory before one of us pulls back with a laugh or a change of subject. We've become experts at this dance, at maintaining plausible deniability while the space between friendship and something else grows smaller and smaller. I tell myself it's wishful thinking, that I'm reading too much into innocent gestures because I want them to mean more than they do. Grant is straight, aggressively so. He dates girls with names like Madison and Brittany, talks about them with the casual appreciation of someone who's never questioned his own desires. He's never given me any real reason to think he sees me as anything other than his best friend. But then there are nights like this one, where we end up sharing a bed because it's practical, because we're adults who can handle a little proximity without making it weird. Except it is weird, and we both know it. The tension that's been building between us for months has nowhere to hide in this small room. On this narrow mattress where pretending not to notice each other becomes impossible. His arm is still around me, solid and warm and utterly foreign in its intimacy. This isn't casual touching. This isn't the unconscious contact of two friends who've known each other long enough to be comfortable sharing space. This is deliberate. This is Grant, who joked about never sleeping next to me, pulling me against him like he's been thinking about it all along. The weight of unspoken things presses down on us both, heavy as the summer air that the fan pushes uselessly around the room. We're balanced on the knife's edge between what we've always been and what we might become. And for the first time since I learned to stop hoping for impossible things, I find myself wondering if maybe, just maybe, this particular impossibility might be within reach. I try to settle into the embrace, to let my body relax against the solid warmth of Grant's chest, but every nerve ending feels electric. My heart is beating so hard I'm certain he can feel it through my back, a frantic rhythm that betrays everything I'm trying to keep hidden. I focus on breathing steadily, on appearing calm, while my mind races through 1,000 different scenarios of how this moment might unfold. Maybe he's just being friendly. Maybe this is how he sleeps, naturally gravitating toward warmth and contact without thinking about what it means. I've seen him with his girlfriends, seen how casually affectionate he can be, how he drapes himself over people like physical closeness is the most natural thing in the world. This could be nothing more than that same easy intimacy, stripped of any deeper meaning. But even as I try to rationalize it away, I know this feels different. There's an intentionality to the way he's holding me, a deliberateness that speaks to something more than unconscious cuddling. His arm across my waist isn't loose or accidental. It's firm, possessive almost, like he's claiming space that he's never claimed before. I shift slightly, testing the boundaries, half expecting him to release me and roll away with an embarrassed laugh. Instead, his arm tightens fractionally, keeping me pressed against him. The adjustment brings us even closer together, eliminating the last few inches of careful distance I'd been maintaining. Now I can feel every contour of his body through the thin fabric of our T-shirts, the steady rise and fall of his breathing, the warmth that radiates from his skin. The silence stretches between us, thick with unspoken questions. Outside, the world continues its late-night rhythm. A siren wails in the distance, growing louder before fading away. Someone walks past on the sidewalk below, their footsteps echoing briefly before disappearing around the corner. But inside this room, time seems suspended, caught in the space between one heartbeat and the next. Grant shifts behind me, and I feel his breath against the back of my neck, warm and slightly uneven. He's awake. I'm certain of it now. Whatever this is, it's not happening in his sleep. He's making a choice, moment by moment, to stay close, to keep holding me, to cross lines we've never crossed before. I wonder if he can sense my confusion, my desperate attempt to decode what's happening between us. I wonder if he's doing the same calculus in his head, weighing the risk of this moment against the safety of everything we've built together. Our friendship is the most important thing in my life. It's the foundation that everything else rests on. The thought of losing it, of ruining it by wanting too much, makes my chest tight with panic. But then Grant does something that changes everything. His hand, which has been resting flat against my ribs, begins to move. It's subtle at first, just the faintest shift of his palm against my shirt. Then his fingers spread wider, spanning more of my torso, and I feel the deliberate press of his thumb tracing a small circle just below my ribcage. The touch is so light it might be accidental, but it happens again and again, a gentle rhythm that sends heat shooting through my veins. This isn't unconscious contact. This isn't friendly cuddling. This is Grant touching me with purpose, with intention, with something that feels dangerously close to desire. My breath catches, and I feel him still behind me, as if he's suddenly realized what he's doing. For a moment, I think he might pull away, might retreat back to safe territory with some joke about being a restless sleeper. But instead, he does something that shatters every assumption I've ever made about this friendship. He hooks his arm more securely around me and pulls me back, eliminating even the whisper of space that remained between us. The movement is confident, decisive, leaving no room for misinterpretation. This isn't an accident or a moment of sleep-addled confusion. This is Grant making a choice, crossing a line, inviting me into territory we've never explored. I freeze, my entire body going rigid with shock, and something that feels like terrified hope. My mind reels, trying to process what's happening, trying to understand how we went from careful distance to this impossible intimacy in the span of a few minutes. But my body knows exactly what to do. Despite every rational thought telling me to be careful, to protect what we have, I find myself melting into the embrace, letting my back curve against his chest. Letting him hold me like this is something we've done 1,000 times before. Relax, he whispers, his voice so low I almost miss it. The word brushes against my ear, intimate as a caress. It's just for tonight. The words should reassure me, should provide the safe framework that will let us return to normal tomorrow. But there's something in his voice, something shaky and uncertain that suggests he's trying to convince himself as much as me. Just for tonight implies that this is temporary, containable, something we can file away and forget when the sun comes up. But the way he's holding me doesn't feel temporary. It feels like something that's been waiting to happen, something that's been building between us for months, waiting for the right moment, the right excuse, the right combination of darkness and proximity to finally emerge. His forehead comes to rest against the back of my head, and I can feel the slight tremor in his breathing, the way his chest rises and falls just a fraction too quickly to be completely calm. He's nervous. Despite all his confidence, despite the decisiveness of his actions, Grant is nervous about this too. The realization settles something in my chest, makes this feel less like something happening to me and more like something we're choosing together. The night stretches ahead of us, vast and uncharted. What began as stillness slowly transforms into something else entirely, a careful choreography of small movements that neither of us acknowledges but both of us feel. Time moves differently in the dark, measured not by the ticking of a clock but by the gradual shift of bodies finding new ways to fit together. Grant's thumb traces lazy patterns against my ribs through the thin cotton of my shirt. The touch is so light it's almost not there, but it might as well be a brand for how intensely I feel it. Each small circle he draws sends electricity racing along my nerves, making me hyper-aware of every point where our bodies connect. His chest against my back, his arm across my waist, the way his breathing has synced with mine until we rise and fall together like we're sharing the same lungs. I should move. I should laugh this off, make some joke about him being clingy, give us both an easy escape route back to the familiar territory of friendship. But I can't bring myself to break this spell, can't bear the thought of returning to the careful distance we've maintained for so long. Instead, I sink deeper into the embrace, letting my guard down in ways I've never allowed myself before. My hand finds his wrist where it rests against my stomach, and I trace the delicate bones there with my fingertips. It's the first time I've touched him back, the first active participation in whatever this is we're creating. I feel him go still behind me, his breathing catching for just a moment, and I wonder if I've pushed too far, crossed a line he wasn't ready for me to cross. But then his thumb resumes its gentle movement, and I feel some of the tension leave his body. He's allowing this, maybe even encouraging it. The realization makes my chest tight, with something between relief and terror. The fan continues its endless rotation, pushing warm air around the small room in currents I can feel against my skin. Outside, the city has settled into its deepest quiet, the kind of stillness that only comes in the hours after midnight when even the most dedicated night owls have finally surrendered to sleep. We exist in a pocket of suspended time, removed from the normal rules and expectations that govern our daylight selves. Grant shifts slightly, and I feel the press of his forehead against the space just behind my ear. The contact is so intimate it makes my breath catch. He's close enough that I can feel his eyelashes when he blinks, close enough that each exhale brushes warm against my skin. This isn't the casual closeness of friends sharing space. This is something else entirely, something that has no name in the vocabulary we've always used to describe our relationship. His arm tightens around my waist, pulling me more securely against him, and I realize that what started as comfort has become something approaching possession. He's holding me like he's afraid I might disappear, like morning might come and steal this moment away before he's ready to let it go. The intensity of it should scare me, but instead it fills me with a warmth that has nothing to do with the summer heat. I let my eyes drift closed, focusing on the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against my spine. It's faster than it should be for someone trying to sleep, betraying the same nervous energy that's keeping me awake. We're both pretending this is normal, both maintaining the fiction that friends can hold each other like this without it meaning anything. But our bodies tell a different story. When Grant's hand moves, sliding from my ribs to rest flat against my stomach, I feel the careful control we've both been maintaining begin to fray. The touch is still over my shirt, still technically innocent, but there's something deliberate about the placement, something that suggests he's mapping the contours of my body with the same attention I've been giving to his. I think about all the times I've watched him with his girlfriends, the easy affection he shows them, the casual way he touches their hands or shoulders or backs. I used to think I understood what those touches meant, filed them away as evidence of his straightforward attraction to women. But now I wonder if I was missing something, if there were other kinds of wanting that he kept hidden, other desires that he never allowed himself to explore. The thought makes me brave in ways I've never been before. I turn my head slightly, not enough to face him, but enough that our faces are closer than they've ever been. I can feel his breath against my cheek now, warm and slightly unsteady. If I turned just a little more, if I shifted just a few inches, our lips would be close enough to touch. But I don't turn. Neither does he. We exist in this space between possibility and action, balanced on the knife's edge of a decision that will change everything. The weight of unspoken words fills the small distance between us, heavy with questions neither of us is ready to ask and answers neither of us is prepared to give. Grant's fingers spread wider against my stomach, his palm pressing more firmly against me, and I feel the last of my careful composure begin to crumble. This isn't just comfort anymore. This isn't just two friends making the best of limited space. This is want, raw and undeniable, finally given permission to exist in the darkness where we can pretend it doesn't count. For once in his life, Grant isn't performing. He isn't being the charming, confident person everyone expects him to be. He's just holding me, breathing against my skin, existing in this moment with a quietness that feels like the most honest thing I've ever seen from him. The words slip out before I can stop them, barely more than a whisper in the thick darkness. You said you'd never sleep next to me. I feel Grant go completely still behind me, his hand freezing against my stomach, his breathing suspended as if my voice has shattered some fragile spell we've been weaving together. For a terrifying moment, I think I've ruined everything, that naming what's happening between us will force him to retreat back into the safety of denial and jokes and careful distance. But then I feel his exhale, warm and shaky against the back of my neck, and when he speaks, his voice is muffled against my shoulder. Yeah, guess elite. The admission hangs in the air between us, simple and devastating. 3 words that crack open everything we've been pretending, everything we've been carefully not saying for months. I lied. Not I was wrong, not I changed my mind. I lied, which means he knew, even when he said it, that it wasn't true. Which means this moment, this choice to pull me close, wasn't spontaneous at all. The revelation sends heat flooding through my chest, a mixture of relief and terror that makes my heart beat so hard I'm surprised it doesn't wake the entire building. All those months of second-guessing myself, of wondering if I was imagining the weight of his glances, the lingering touches, the way conversations would pause when we got too close to dangerous territory. All those times I convinced myself I was reading too much into innocent gestures, that my feelings were making me see things that weren't there. But they were there. Grant has been feeling this too, wrestling with the same questions, fighting the same careful battle between want and friendship that's been consuming me. The knowledge is almost too much to process, too enormous to fit inside the careful boundaries I've built around my hope. His breath grows warmer against my neck, and I realize he's moved closer, pressing his face into the space just behind my ear. The contact is so intimate it makes my entire body shiver, so deliberate that there's no pretending it means anything other than what it obviously means. This is Grant, who has never shown interest in men, who dates cheerleaders and sorority girls with easy confidence, burying his face against my skin like he's been starving for this contact. I can feel the slight tremor in his arms where they hold me. The way his breathing has gone uneven and shallow. He's nervous, maybe even scared, and the vulnerability in that knowledge makes my chest ache with tenderness. This is uncharted territory for both of us. But for Grant, it must feel like stepping off a cliff into complete darkness. Everything he's always known about himself, every assumption he's made about what he wants and who he is has been called into question by this moment. The weight of that trust, the fact that he's letting me witness this uncertainty, feels like the most precious gift anyone has ever given me. Grant, who never lets anyone see him as anything less than completely confident, is showing me his fear, his confusion, his desperate need for this connection that he doesn't understand but can't deny. I turn my head slightly, not enough to face him, but enough that our temples are almost touching, enough that I can feel his eyelashes brush against my skin when he blinks. The small movement brings our lips close enough that I can feel his breath across my mouth, warm and tempting and terrifyingly real. Why? I whisper, the question slipping out before I can consider whether I really want to know the answer. Why did you lie? For a long moment, he doesn't respond. I can feel him thinking, weighing his words, maybe weighing whether to retreat back into safer territory with another joke or deflection. But when he finally speaks, his voice is so quiet I have to strain to hear it, so honest it makes my throat tight with emotion. Because I've been thinking about it, about you, about this, and it scares the hell out of me. The confession breaks something open in my chest, some carefully constructed wall that's been holding back months of accumulated longing. He's been thinking about me, about us, about moments like this one, where the careful distance we maintain crumbles and we're left with nothing but the raw truth of what we feel for each other. His arm tightens around my waist, pulling me back against him with enough force that I can feel every contour of his body through our thin shirts. There's nothing careful about the contact now, nothing that could be explained away as accidental or friendly. This is claim and possession and desperate need all wrapped up in the simple act of holding me close. I think about all the nights I've lain awake wondering what it would feel like to be wanted by him, to be the object of the same easy affection he shows his girlfriends. I thought it was impossible, thought it was the kind of hopeless longing that would define my college years and then fade into bittersweet memory. But here we are, tangled together in the dark, his breath against my neck and his voice in my ear, admitting to desires that mirror my own. The fan continues its steady rotation, pushing warm air around the room that suddenly feels too small to contain everything that's happening between us. Outside, the world sleeps on, oblivious to the fact that everything has changed in this borrowed bedroom, on this mattress that barely fits us both. Grant's forehead presses more firmly against the back of my head, and I feel him breathing me in, like he's trying to memorize my scent, my warmth, the exact way we fit together. The gesture is so tender it makes my eyes burn with unshed tears. For the first time in months, maybe years, I let myself hope for something I can't have. Except maybe, just maybe, I can have it after all. The admission hangs between us like a bridge I never thought I'd have the courage to cross. Grant's words echo in my mind, each syllable carved into memory with perfect clarity. I've been thinking about it, about you, about this, and it scares the hell out of me. The vulnerability in his voice, the way it shook with something between fear and longing, makes my chest ache with tenderness and possibility. But I can also feel his tension, the way his body has gone rigid against mine, as if he's already regretting the honesty, already calculating how to retreat back to safer ground. This is the moment where everything could collapse, where we could laugh it off and pretend it was just late-night confusion, just two friends getting carried away by proximity and darkness. We could wake up tomorrow and never speak of this again, let it fade into the category of things that almost happened but didn't quite count. The thought of losing this moment, of watching Grant slip back behind his usual mask of easy confidence and casual deflection, makes something desperate unfurl in my chest. I've spent so long accepting that wanting him was hopeless that I'd trained myself to be grateful for whatever pieces of himself he was willing to share. But now, with his confession still warm against my ear and his arm tight around my waist, I realize I don't want to settle for pieces anymore. I turn in his arms, the movement slow and deliberate, giving him every opportunity to stop me, to maintain the distance that would let us both pretend this isn't happening. But he doesn't stop me. His arm loosens just enough to let me shift, then tightens again once I'm facing him, keeping me pressed close even as the new position changes everything about our embrace. The room is barely lit by the streetlight filtering through the blinds, casting everything in shades of amber and shadow. But it's enough to see Grant's face, enough to catch the way his eyes search mine with an intensity that makes my breath catch. He looks caught, not in the sense of being trapped, but in the sense of being exposed, all his usual defenses stripped away by the darkness and honesty of this moment. "Don't overthink it," he mutters, but his voice lacks its usual confidence. There's something shaky in the words, something that sounds more like a plea than a command. He's trying to give us both an escape route, a way to frame this as something casual and meaningless that won't threaten the foundation of our friendship. But I can see the truth in his eyes, can read the want there that mirrors my own. He's as scared as I am, as uncertain about what this means or where it leads. The knowledge makes me brave in ways I've never been before, fills me with a reckless courage that has no regard for consequences or careful planning. Instead of letting him retreat, instead of accepting the easy out he's offering, I reach up and brush my hand along his jaw. The touch is gentle but unmistakable. The first time I've ever touched him with clear intent, with purpose that can't be explained away or rationalized. His skin is warm under my palm, slightly rough with the beginnings of stubble, achingly real. Grant's eyes flutter, closed at the contact, and I feel rather than see the small shudder that runs through him. His reaction emboldens me, makes me trace the sharp line of his cheekbone with my thumb, mapping the geography of his face like I've wanted to do for months. When he opens his eyes again, the last pretense of casualness has disappeared entirely. The choice crystallizes in the space between one heartbeat and the next. I could pull my hand away, could laugh, and say something about the weirdness of sharing a bed, could give us both the out that Grant is trying to provide. It would be the safe choice, the one that preserves our friendship and keeps us both in familiar territory. But safety has never given me anything worth having. And the way Grant is looking at me now, like I'm something precious and terrifying and completely necessary, makes me want to choose courage instead. So I don't pull away. I lean closer instead, closing the small distance between us until our foreheads are touching, until we're sharing the same air, until the only thing left between us is the choice to close the final gap or maintain it forever. My hand slides from his jaw to the back of his neck, fingers tangling in the soft hair there, and I feel him tremble under my touch. His breath mingles with mine, warm and unsteady, and I can see the exact moment when his last defenses crumble. Something shifts in his expression, some internal battle finally reaching its conclusion, and suddenly his free hand is cupping my face with a gentleness that makes my heart stutter. We stay like that for a suspended moment, balanced on the edge of something that will change everything. Both of us afraid to be the one who makes the final move, but neither of us willing to pull away. The tension is almost unbearable, the space between our lips charged with months of accumulated longing and fear and desperate hope. Grant's thumb traces across my cheekbone, and when he speaks, his voice is barely a whisper. I don't know what I'm doing. The admission breaks my heart and repairs it simultaneously. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he's doing it anyway. He's choosing this moment, choosing me, choosing the terrifying unknown over the safety of everything we've always been. I don't either, I whisper back, and then I close the distance between us, pressing my lips to his in a kiss that tastes like coming home and jumping off a cliff all at once. The kiss is soft at first, tentative, as if we're both afraid that too much pressure might shatter whatever fragile magic has brought us to this moment. Grant's lips are warm and slightly chapped, tasting faintly of the mint toothpaste he used before bed and something that's purely him. It's nothing like I imagined it would be during all those months of secret wanting, and everything like I hoped it could be at the same time. When we break apart, it's only by inches. Our faces still close enough that our breath mingles in the small space between us. Grant's eyes are wide and dark in the amber light filtering through the blinds, searching my face for something I hope he finds there. His thumb continues its gentle movement across my cheekbone, as if he's trying to memorize the exact texture of my skin, the precise shape of the moment when everything changed. For a heartbeat, I think he might pull away, might retreat into apologies and explanations about how this was a mistake, how we should pretend it never happened. But instead, he leans in again, pressing his forehead against mine with a sigh that sounds like relief and surrender all at once. I don't know what this makes us, he whispers, the words barely audible in the quiet room. But I know I don't want to stop. The admission sends warmth flooding through my chest, chasing away the last of my fear about where this leads or what it means. We don't have to have answers tonight. We don't have to solve the puzzle of what we are or what we're becoming. All we have to do is exist in this moment. In this space we've carved out between friendship and something deeper, something that doesn't yet have a name but feels as real as breathing. I kiss him again, and this time there's nothing tentative about it. This time, Grant responds immediately, his hand sliding from my cheek to tangle in my hair, pulling me closer with a desperation that matches my own. We kiss like we're drowning, and each other is air, like we're making up for months of careful distance and swallowed words and touches that never quite cross the line into honesty. When we finally separate, both of us breathing hard, Grant doesn't let me go far. His arm tightens around my waist, keeping me pressed against him while we catch our breath and try to process what just happened. The fan continues its steady rotation, pushing warm air around the room that suddenly feels charged with new possibility. We should probably talk about this, I say, though the words feel strange in my mouth. The practical part of my brain knows there will be questions tomorrow, complications to navigate, conversations about what this means for our friendship and our futures. But right now, talking feels less important than the solid warmth of Grant's body against mine, the way his fingers trace absent patterns on my back, the quiet contentment settling in my chest like something I never knew I was missing. Grant makes a soft sound that might be agreement or protest. Tomorrow, he murmurs against my temple. We'll figure it out tomorrow. It's the same promise he made earlier, the same attempt to contain this moment within safe boundaries. But something has shifted in his voice, some quality that suggests he knows as well as I do that tomorrow won't erase this, won't let us return to the careful choreography of our old friendship. We've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed, opened a door that won't close again, no matter how much we might want the safety of what we had before. The thought should terrify me, but instead it fills me with a quiet certainty that feels like coming home. This is right. Whatever complications await us, whatever questions we'll have to answer, this moment feels like the most honest thing that's ever happened between us. Grant shifts, adjusting his position so that we're lying face to face, his arms still wrapped securely around my waist. The new angle brings us even closer together, eliminates the last pretense that this is anything other than what it obviously is. Two people who care about each other, who want each other, who have finally stopped fighting the pull that's been drawing them together for months. His free hand finds mine under the thin blanket, fingers interlacing with a natural ease that makes my heart skip. Such a simple gesture, but it feels profound in its intimacy, this choice to hold onto each other even as we drift towards sleep. His thumb traces across my knuckles, a gentle rhythm that mirrors the steady beat of my pulse. The room settles around us, the fan's mechanical hum blending with the distant sounds of the city outside. But inside this borrowed space, on this narrow mattress that barely fits us both, we've created something that belongs entirely to us. A moment of perfect understanding, of one acknowledged and fear overcome, of two people choosing each other despite all the reasons they should probably choose safety instead. Grant's breathing begins to even out, but his hold on me doesn't loosen. If anything, his arm tightens fractionally, as if even in approaching sleep he's afraid I might slip away. But I'm not going anywhere. For the first time in months, maybe years, I'm exactly where I want to be. The last thing I'm aware of before sleep finally claims me is the steady rhythm of Grant's heartbeat against my chest, the warm weight of his arm across my waist, and the way our hands remain tangled together under the blanket. Two friends who became something more in the space between one breath and the next, their bodies pressed together in a way that can't be undone, holding on to each other like they're afraid the morning might steal this gift away. But morning is still hours away, and for now, this is enough. This is everything.